Here we
Welcome,
are.
everyone, to the Roundtable News Network. Sorry for that glitch. It is your boy, the franchise player, Double B Bad Blood. I am joined by the Drew Nicholas. And boy, Drew, we got a lot of freaking news today. Shit, man, this has been a
Yeah,
crazy
this
week.
is. I was telling Bad Blood before we started the show that it was actually the perfect time for us to start doing this show because boy, did we not realize how crazy 2024 was going to be.
Oh my God, it is just February, ladies and gentlemen, and the news had, well, let's say this: the proverbial shit has hit the fan. Really.
Yeah.
So I want to start it off with some stuff that happened here in the great state of Oregon. Portland, Oregon. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you guys remember back in the early 80s, late 90s, we had a WWE superstar by the name of Billy Jack Haynes. Billy Jack Haynes also worked in WCW under a mask known as Black Blood. He worked at Jim Crockett Promotions, World Class Championship Wrestling. He's worked in NWA down in Florida. I heard about this Thursday morning. William Albert Haynes, aka Billy Jack Haynes, was a massive star in Portland territory of wrestling. Ran with the WWF in the late 80s, early 90s, and WCW as well. Was arrested. He was arrested Thursday morning on charges of murder. Authorities report that they received authorities received reports of a shooting at the 6,000 block of 100th Avenue here in Portland, Oregon, where I live, at 9:52 a.m. local time, which is Pacific Standard Time. He was arrested after a 2-hour standoff with the police, where shots were fired, and they were reportedly coming from his home in the Lintz area. Lintz area is a kind of a suburb of Portland, a little small area. Coin 6, which is the local news station here, which was on the scene of the crime, says on the scene said that Billy Jack Haynes, who was 70 years old, who had not been identified at that point, was not cooperative with the authorities of the initial response, leading to a special tactics unit. We're talking SWAT coming to his home with a crisis negotiator. After 2 hours, Billy Jack Haynes was taken into custody. His local neighborhood was ordered to shelter in place during the standoff. Local reports said that Jeanette Bearcraft, 85 of Portland, Oregon, who was Billy Jack Haynes' wife, was found dead in the house. Once Haynes was taken into custody, authorities began a homicide investigation. Haynes was questioned overnight and remains in custody. The medical examiner has determined that she died of homicide by a gunshot wound. Sergeant Kevin Allen told PWI Insider, "I can confirm that the man we detained last night remains in police custody this morning. He is not booked into jail on charges of the crime, so we are not releasing him at this time." And we are in communication with the detectives, so we're gonna have an update later. I think I'm gonna contact the Portland Police Bureau myself and get an exclusive for the Roundtable Pro Wrestling News Network.
Now, you knew Billy Jack Haynes, didn't you?
Yeah, and here's the thing about Billy Jack Haynes. For years he had been like on the Vince McMahon is a murderer, Vince McMahon is a abused. Like he was calling out Vince McMahon decades before the Wall Street Journal called out Vince McMahon. He was calling him out decades before. A lot of people didn't know, but Billy J. Kane suffers from dementia. So hopefully, we will
As did
find
his
out.
wife, correct?
As did his wife. Yes, yes. So I mean,
Yeah, that's
hopefully
an
we will find
unfortunate
out.
situation.
Yeah, he was a huge star in the Don Owens Pacific Northwest version of the NWA back in the day. You know, Portland wrestling, old school Portland wrestling. Like he's like an icon here in Portland. Like there's Matt Bourne, Roddy Piper, Billy Jack Haynes, the Grappler, and uh, what's the guy that used to do the blow away? I can't think of his name right now. But he doesn't matter, obviously.
Yeah, it's a sort of really unfortunate situation, and boy, it took your local area by storm. When
Oh
was
my
this? It was
god,
on
it
Thursday,
sure
right?
did. Thursday morning. Like I received a lot of Facebook messages, a lot of text messages, Snapchat, emails. Like people were just like blowing me up, like, dude, did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear? And I'm like, hear about what? You know how I found out the story? My ex-wife lives in the area, and she told me, "Hey, I don't know if you remember this guy, but the police are there's a standoff at his house." I'm like, "Wait, what?
Wow.
Wow, okay."
Well, I hope justice has to be brought in any way that they see fit. Obviously, he has dementia, as you said. His wife also had dementia.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Like I remember Billy Jack Haynes claimed that during his WWE run, his WWF run, he was using his travel schedule to traffic cocaine. At the same time as going as far as he witnessed the murder in the infamous Boys on the Tracks case there in Little Rock, Arkansas. So dude, there was a lot, a lot with Billy Jack Haynes, man. He was involved in that CTE related lawsuit that was dismissed in 2019 against the WWE. It's a lot. It's a
yeah.
lot.
Hopefully, their family can be at peace with whatever decision comes
Yeah.
down in that. And they're holding him, so imagining he's going to get charged
Oh,
because they know that he did it.
he's definitely going to get charged.
Yeah.
I mean, when you here in Portland, if you got to stand off with the police, you're automatically guilty.
Yeah.
But not here
Yes.
on this new show. Not here on this new show. He's innocent until proven guilty.
So why don't we get into your big story of who told Vince McMahon to resign from TKO and WWE?
Wow. So the latest edition of the Hollywood Reporter features a piece on the TKO Group Holdings handling the fallout of the Vince McMahon lawsuit. Specifically, one Slim Jim announced that they're pausing their sponsorship deal with the WWE. They did that like the night before the Royal Rumble. And then once Vince stepped down, the Royal Rumble got that sponsorship back. But Ari Emanuel, the TKO president and COO, along with Mark Shapiro, called McMahon and told him that it would be the best interest of the company for him to resign. He agreed, submitted his resignation. He would no longer have a role with TKO Group Holdings or the WWE. WWE President Nick Khan wrote that in a memo to the staff at 8:30 p.m. That evening, announcing McMahon's resignation. So the article that came from the Mike Johnson from the PWI Insider said that the article also stated that the Janelle Grant lawsuit caught TKO leadership by surprise, while another claimed that McMahon's past actions are now catching up to him. So we had McMahon, the WWE, and John Laurinaitis are all defendants in the Grant lawsuit, but they have yet to officially respond. McMahon has publicly promised to defend himself, while Laurinaitis, through his attorney, has presented that he was as much a victim of McMahon as Grant was. So what this sounds like to me, and this is just what I think by reading that, when the WWE lost that sponsorship, Mark Shapiro called Vince and was like, "Yo, you got to go. You got to go, man. You got to go." So Mike Johnson from PWI Insider, got this review or this report from the Hollywood Reporter. It basically stated that that Vince knew, like TKO didn't know that this stuff was going on. But other reports have stated that TKO didn't know this was going on, and that's the reason why it wasn't such a big surprise. So I'm so confused as to this whole thing.
Right. Well, I mean, of course, Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro aren't going to outright come out and say,
Oh no.
so we knew that all of this happened, and we still decided to take Vince on. And Ari famously was on that ESPN show with Vince sitting right next to him and said, "Oh, we needed Vince for this."
Hmm.
Obviously he wouldn't now then come out and say, "Oh yeah, we knew about all these allegations, and yet we still brought Vince on anyway."
I mean, 2 weeks ago they were at the stock exchange with The Rock, ringing the damn bell.
That's right.
All
Yeah,
of them. So it's crazy.
that was right before I believe he stepped down officially.
That was the day before he stepped down.
So yeah,
Man.
businessmen are going to be businessmen here.
Yeah.
I understand that aspect of it because you have to protect yourself. But of course, it was the right call for Vince to not be in this position in TKO anymore. But of course, we don't know who knew what and when they knew it. But this is actually a good lead-in for another story that I have that
Hmm.
Vice News reported, talking about the man that you just mentioned. Because way back in, I believe it was 2005, Ashley Massaro was reportedly raped on a military base.
It was doing a tribute to the troops, right?
During tribute to the troops, that's right. And now Vice News reported this week, despite denials, WWE management knew Ashley Massaro was raped because she had indeed reported it, unlike WWE, who back then said that she had not reported it. So what happened was the late wrestler Ashley Massaro said WWE management was aware of and covered up her claim to have been raped in Kuwait during the Tribute to the Troops show. And a former top executive now says that he knew. And that former top executive is the man who's trying to take down the ship with him, who you just mentioned is also a victim of Vince McMahon, and that is none other than John Laurinaitis.
Good old Johnny Ace.
So, Vince McMahon, of course, stands accused of covering up the alleged rape of a WWE wrestler who later died by apparent suicide at a military base in Kuwait, sexually harassing her, according to legal documents and people who knew her. John Laurinaitis, a former WWE executive and McMahon's co-defendant in the civil sex trafficking lawsuit, Janelle Grant. His lawyer objected to the use of the term cover-up, but confirmed that Laurinaitis knew about the rape allegations and said most upper-level management did, contradicting WWE's claim that executives were never made aware of them.
So I'm wondering who. Okay, so it said most upper level management. That could be.
Who was upper-level management back in 2005?
I mean, wow. Let's see. Vince, Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, um, Jim Ross. Jim Ross was management in WWE at the time. Um, let's see. Bruce Pritchard. Jesus Christ. So yeah,
Wow, that's a lot of
that's
people.
that's a lot of people.
So for people who are unaware of the Ashley Massaro story, and I actually wasn't 100% aware of everything that had happened. In a sworn affidavit her lawyer released in 2019, after her death, former wrestler Ashley Massaro said she was injected with a paralyzing drug and raped by someone representing himself as a U.S. Army doctor while on tour with WWE in Kuwait. It was 2006, not 2005.
Mhm.
Massaro also said the top executives at the company, including McMahon and Laurinaitis, told her not to talk about the incident and agreed to not talk about it themselves, in part to preserve the company's relationship with the military. Now, of course, we know Tribute to the Troops is a yearly end of the year thing usually in like late November, mid
Hmm.
December, around that
Yeah,
time
right,
before
right,
they do their
right before
holiday.
Christmas. Yeah,
Yeah, right before their holiday tour.
yeah.
This has gone on for many years. It's gotten, wonderful praise from everybody. Um, but this this incident that happened could have derailed that whole thing.
And this
Uh,
is around the time it just started too, because I remember the very first tribute to the troops was funded. I mean, most of them were funded by JBL. Like it was his way of giving back to the military. So he was funding it out of his own pocket to do tribute to the troops, and then the WWE just completely just took it over and let it run with it. But 2006, like this is when they first started doing it. I mean, like I'm not. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was around that time when they just started doing it because I remember they did it on an aircraft carrier. They did it in Kuwait. They did it in where else did they do it? God, they did it in some military base out in Georgia. And they've been just doing. They were doing them around bases before, like right before we went back to right before we went to war. And when we went to war, they started going overseas,
mhm,
doing it over there. So I mean, this there's a lot that story just unpacked a whole lot.
right. So the Vice News report continues and says that in the years since the affidavit was released, new information had come to light to corroborate some of Massaro's claims and cast doubt on WWE's subsequent denial, even before the statement from Laurinaitis' lawyer, Paul London. A former WWE wrestler who dated Massaro when they were both with the company has also said Massaro was herself a victim of McMahon's sexual misconduct. The alleged the allegations appear in a new light following the filing of civil lawsuit accusing McMahon and Laurinaitis of raping a WWE employee, and McMahon of covering it up by strong arming her into signing a non-disclosure agreement, which both have denied those allegations, of course. So, um,
But wasn't there an NCIS report? And then for you guys who don't know what NCIS is, it's Naval Criminal
oh
Investigation
yes, that's right. I'm
Intelligence
sorry, I skipped that
Services.
paragraph.
Um,
Um, Vice News can report for the first time that the Naval Criminal Intelligence Service (NCIS)
much like the
opened an
TV show.
investigation into Massaro's allegations in June 2019. The investigation was closed January 2020, according to an NCIS spokesperson. Further information, they said, could not be immediately released as it would need to be obtained under the Freedom of Information Act.
So what that says is the Freedom of Information Act is basically protecting her as an individual, her information. It's like the Privacy Act. You can't give out a person's real
Right.
name, things like that. But um, there obviously is something there. I mean, this cover up. I mean, the word cover up was used twice in this story. And just like here's just I know we don't usually give our personal opinions on this show, but I'm going to give one right now. Drew, if I told you I stole that TNT title right under from. I stole that TNT title you have right there under Yoda. I took that belt and I gave it to my dog. And you don't tell your husband that I stole that belt, and he finds out that the belt's missing. If you don't tell him, and you already knew, we're covering that up. Like that's basically the definition of a cover up. Knowing
Yes.
something and not releasing, not knowing something and making sure no one else finds out. So if McMahon and
And
Laurinaitis knew,
taking steps to
taking
ensure that
steps to
nobody finds
ensure
out.
that, yeah. So if they took these steps to ensure that, then how could they deny there was a cover up?
Right.
I
So
mean, he
the
basically
last
admitted,
part of this is a really long report, so I
yeah, it
took
is.
pieces of it.
No, I'm glad you
But
did.
the last part mentioning this, any so the Edward Brennan,
The lawyer.
Laurinaitis' lawyer, wrote
Mhm.
any allegations that Mr. Laurinaitis helped to cover up once again, an
First
alleged
time.
rape allegation is an outright lie, which he said in response to questions about Massaro's allegation. Johnny, like most upper level management, at some time became aware of the allegation and ensured all proper WWE protocols were followed, including privacy for the alleged victim. We object to the use of the term cover up as no such plan or plot ever took place to hide or assist the alleged rape. A
But
spokesperson for
earlier,
TKO, a spokesperson for TKO, WWE's parent company, declined to comment, and a lawyer said to represent McMahon did not respond to requests for comment. Either McMahon or Laurinaitis is now associated with WWE, with McMahon resigning as chairman of TKO a day after the sex trafficking suit was filed. So, sorry, I cut you off there. What were you saying?
no. But here's my issue with that whole report. The lawyer stated earlier in a statement that Laurinaitis knew about it. And now the lawyer at the last part of the statement is saying that he became aware of it afterwards. So
So Edward Brennan said that they're saying that the allegations that he helped to cover it up was a lie, not that he didn't know about it.
well, okay, but he he knew about it earlier and didn't say anything.
Well, the
Didn't
bigger
do
the
anything.
bigger issue here is not even just with Laurinaitis, but that the original um, investigations of this, WWE said that they were not made aware of it immediately.
Exactly.
So they and the upper level management that were mentioned in this article were lying back then. So now, who are those upper level management people? It's similar to the Janelle Grant lawsuit, where you've got WWE corporate officer 1 and corporate officer 2 and
Mm-hmm.
3 and this doctor and this talent. It's like we need to find out who these people are. Of course, there's a possibility that we never find out who these people are, which is unfortunate because those people should be held accountable for their actions.
There's so much to unpack in this whole scenario, man. I wish we had a lot of time to go to dive deep into this,
Yeah.
but like we said earlier, the news just keeps hitting, man. It's like being in a Tyson fight. You just keep getting punched more and more and more news, more and more and more news. And
Yeah.
it's just February.
Because what else happened this week is TNA released Scott D'Amore.
Biggest mistake. Biggest, huge mistake. Okay. Look, TNA Wrestling named a new president of TNA, Anthony Chacon. Okay, Anthem Sports and Entertainment, a global multi-platform media company, announced that they have appointed Anthony Chacon as the president of TNA. The move aims to further to integrate TNA Wrestling into Anthem Entertainment Group, which Chacon is the president already. So they're leveraging the company's resources to add more value in the area of production, distribution, marketing, viewership, customer acquisition, all that cool stuff. Now, D'Amore, Scott D'Amore, who was under contract to Anthem, it was like virtually just like, yo, we're done with you. Terminated his contract. He had been part of TNA since 2003. His leadership was like a very vital key in the growth of the company, in my opinion. So Chacon's
In fact,
new.
I want to say Fightful had just done an interview with Speedball Mike Bailey
Mhm.
5 days ago. And in his interview, it's really good. Go check that out. Right at the end of the interview, he says, where is it? Scott, this is it, right? Yeah, where's the okay, he spoke about the TNA locker room and he said that was mainly due to all the great experiences and all of the positivity that he talks about in the interview. He said that was mainly due to good management and scheduling, and Speedball Mike Bailey praised Scott D'Amore's contribution to TNA's success and growth. He just did that a few days ago, and then they released him.
It's so crazy because like Scott D'Amore brings 30 years of fucking executive level management to TNA. The guy's been around wrestling for. He knows so much about wrestling. Anthony Chacon, the guy that's taking over his job, doesn't know anything about wrestling. This is kind of like when Eric Bischoff took over WCW. Eric Bischoff was a TV executive who knew a little bit about wrestling. This guy knows nothing about wrestling. Like, I'll put it this way: after getting rid of after Anthem got rid of Scott D'Amore, they did a Zoom call where they informed the talent that D'Amore had been released. No, they say he had stepped down. and then later on it came out that they fired him. Um, a lot of the talent were very unhappy. This is on the heels of TNA doing a very, 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 very prosperous pay per view.
Yeah,
Like
it was highly regarded, and really it got positive press for them. Really
a
positive
lot of
press.
positive press.
The
So
I could honestly say that TNA had never looked better up until that point.
exactly. So to take something that was failing and to, I mean, dude, he brought in Okada, he brought in friggin' Will Ospreay. Like this guy built he basically rebuilt a new brand from the ashes of like the Dixie Carter era and the Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff era, and you know the Vince Russo era, like all these eras that they were failing. Scott D'Amore took over, made the company work. We've always said on the podcast, like we talk about, man, maybe one of us should actually sit down and do a TNA stream because their storylines and their matches were great. The only problem is that Anthem is such a small place, television wise. Unless you're in Canada, you can't really watch it here in the United States. It's like one of those shows where you have to flip through access and hope to get it. You know, if they had a better network, like if they're on the CW or something, a better network or a better time slot where people can find them, that show would be on par with AEW. Like
Yeah,
even the
I
AEW,
agree.
even the AEW deal that they were part of, like still like that right there would have been on par. We'd have four major companies in professional wrestling if that would
Yeah,
have happened. But
it's just so unfortunate that it seems the top level TNA people, and it's really, it wasn't
more like
even TNA,
Anthem.
it was Anthem. Because I believe it was Anthem, wasn't it, that decided to remove Scott from TNA
Yeah,
because Anthem owns TNA. So it's so unfortunate because so many people have spoken highly of Scott, and like we said, Scott is the reason why there is so much positivity towards TNA right now. You
but
think
the
that they
plot,
would want to
but the plot
keep
thickens,
that?
Drew.
It
The
does.
plot thickens. It gets a little bit deeper because later on, Mike Johnson from PWI Insider reported that this is the reason why Diamore was fired. There was a lot of people assuming something um like something saucy happened between that led to Scott D'Amore's exit. But we were told that they were told by sources that Anthem just wasn't the case. There was no clear reason as to why they fired him. No clear reason. As a matter of fact, Scott D'Amore wanted to buy TNA from Anthem, much like Eric Bischoff tried to do. And according to sources, the money was right. There were sources within Anthem that said what Scott D'Amore was offering was a very good price. But if Anthem wanted to sell TNA, they would have sold it to someone like WWE or AEW. So um basically it looks like Scott D'Amore wanted to buy the company and they were like, "Oh, you want to buy the company? You want to take it over? Well, goodbye. You're out of here."
Hmm.
And
That's just,
that's the way it sounds. I mean, remember
it's not like he was trying to tank the company. He was
exactly.
trying to elevate the company.
I mean,
And
remember at one time, PWI Insider also said that CM Punk and Will Ospreay were offered boatloads of money by Anthem through Scott D'Amore. So it's obvious that Scott D'Amore was just trying to build Anthem and trying to build TNA up to be a powerhouse, a juggernaut. And Anthem is doing what most television companies that don't know anything about wrestling tend to do.
and
Throw
now this
executives at it.
Anthony Siccioni, or
Mhm.
however we pronounce his name, Italians, us Italians, we
Yeah.
have weird pronunciations for our names sometimes. It could be Saccone, it could be Siccione, who knows? Um, so this guy now, like you said, knows nothing about wrestling, and now is replaced Scott, who was highly regarded by everyone that worked with him in TNA. There were a bunch of people. While we had the "We Want Cody" stuff going on this week, there was Trinity, Naomi in WWE, Speedball Mike Bailey. so many people have come out in support of Scott, and it's leading, unfortunately, it's leading to
Negative press for
something
the
we
network.
didn't think was going to happen again. Another LOL TNA moment.
And you know what's crazy is that their last pay per view they did in Vegas, they're going back to the same place. Like, if it were me and I just seen that resurgence of like our company, I will try to go to another market. Like, hey, you know what? TNA is big in Canada. Go do a show in Canada. Hey, TNA is big in Vegas. Do a show in Vegas. Why not go to Los Angeles? Why not go to New York? Why not go to Chicago? Chicago's a wrestling town. Go to
I'd probably go
Chicago.
to a TNA show if they came to
Yeah,
New York.
go to Indianapolis, Indiana. Like, shit, come to Portland, Oregon. Go places that you're going to build a new fan base. But this is just like, remember when TNA was back at the Nashville Fairgrounds, Nashville, Tennessee. Then they went to Orlando and they were in a sound studio in Orlando. Like, this is crazy. In addition to these duties as president of entertainment, Chacon or Sicillon, whatever we're going to call him today, will now manage the day-to-day business operations for TNA Wrestling. He brings more than 30 years of executive level management experience to the organization, being Anthem. He's been with Anthem for the past 16 years, managing technical operations, multiple cable and digital channels. Prior to his time with Anthem, Chacon was a producer of sports content, including catapulting the score to the success by bringing the WWE to the channel. So basically, what he is a Nick Khan minus the sport, minus the being a sports agent. He's just he's just a deal maker. That's all he is. What does he know about professional wrestling? Nothing.
Unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
So
And
that's
at
very
least we
sad day.
know that Scott was aware that he was going to be let go. It wasn't just like a
Yeah,
surprise.
it was like they said that Diamore was aware 10 days prior to being released. So I mean, geez, like this is crazy, man. I just like every wrestling company out there right now has had a major shakeup in the executive offices.
Yeah, because if we take a moment to go to Japan, Rossi Agawa
Mm-hmm.
was removed from Stardom, the company that he created, because apparently, according to a Stardom report that came out, he was poaching talent to WWE.
Which is crazy in itself.
It's it's really so much since our show last week. So much stuff has happened. It's insane.
It's ridiculous.
And three things that came out were from top level people in major wrestling promotions.
Yeah.
Just insane, honestly. So he was removed from Stardom last week or earlier this week, and now it's come out that he wants to start his own wrestling promotion, and a lot of Stardom's women
They're gonna
want to
go.
follow him.
So the deal with that is
So,
a lot of those women are not under when their contracts expire, which are like coming up really soon.
and also Stardom made everyone aware, I think it was on February 8th, that if they're leaving, you got to tell us ASAP. Because, all right, fine, you want to go, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stick to our plans with you guys. Because, there could be, I don't know how many members of the roster there are for Stardom. But if a lot of them liked Rossi Agawa,
Which most of them did.
most of them did, that means that it's possible that Stardom's house gets wiped out, and what happens to Stardom after that?
I mean, you can't dictate to people and tell people, hey, you have until this time to tell me what you're going to do with your life. And then you fire the guy who created this company. Like, this guy literally created Stardom. He created all of these. I mean, he built all of these talents. And then for them to be like, yeah, well, he's out of here, deuces. People are gonna feel that loyalty. People are gonna be like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and go with him because that's what you do. So,
So also, I mean, linked to the story, um, Kairi Sane was a member of the Stardom roster in
mhm,
2023, and she chose to return to WWE. Um, and then the part of the reason Kairi did not say, this is from the Wrestling Observer. According to Meltzer, Sane's decision was due to her loyalty to Rossi Egawa, who was recently
mhm,
terminated from his role by Bushiroad, owner of Stardom. This was part of the reason that Kairi did not sign a deal with Stardom and return to WWE. She's close with Egawa and knew he wouldn't be a part of Stardom going forward. Not only with Kairi Sane, but it's also the reason that Julia didn't sign a new deal with Stardom
mhm.
and also agreed to WWE. So clearly, Rossi was poaching. And now we figured out Julia has paused her agreement to go to WWE so that this way she can start helping out Rossi with his new promotion. So Julia was supposed to start with WWE soon, but because of all this happening, now she has asked to delay her start so that this way she could help Rossi. Um, yeah, this was a crazy shakeup that led to multiple revelations. Um, yeah, it's really unfortunate, that Stardom is likely going to take a hit from this.
Oh, they're not only going to take a hit. You got guys like, and the sad part is, you got guys like Tony Khan taking shots at Agawa on Instagram and on Twitter and things like that. Like it's ridiculous. And apparently a lot of talent is upset with Tony Khan for doing that. So now the deal with Tony Khan and anything Agawa's doing will never happen. So all those people that Tony Khan was hoping to bring from Stardom that were loyal to Agawa are not going to go there
I
because
don't know if they would have ever gone there to begin with, because
I mean,
Rossi Agawa was apparently the reason why Tony Khan couldn't work with Stardom. And I feel like if Rossi, whatever the whoever likes Rossi is going to follow him wherever he goes.
oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I don't think that his new promotion would have had a working relationship with
Well,
AEW.
90% of that roster is going to go with him.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so that,
hopefully, Stardom can come out of this because Stardom is highly regarded.
yeah.
Mercedes Moné was recently a champion
Mm-hmm.
in Stardom, uh, who we're also going to talk about momentarily. Um, but yeah, a lot of people have talked highly of Stardom, and I hope that this move doesn't, end the company. It could potentially end the company if everyone leaves. I don't know how many people they could just start hiring all of a sudden. I mean, I'm sure some people would want to go to Stardom, but
I mean, it's rich in history. I mean that's a plus. But everything that's going on right now, I don't know, man. It's crazy.
so I just mentioned Mercedes. Um, this week on AEW Dynamite, Tony Khan announced that the March 13th episode of Dynamite, held in Boston, Massachusetts, at the TD Garden, is going to be it's going to be called AEW Big Business. And in the graphic for Big Business, you can kind of see a little, it's in a smaller font, but it's not very well hidden, but it's there. It says Boston, but the Boston is with two S's, and they're both in dollar signs. So Boston, which we all know when Mercedes Moné, who was Sasha Banks in WWE, they would always call her the boss. and
She's from Boston,
from Boston, even though I found out she's actually not from Boston.
Northern California.
She's from Northern California, but she was raised in Boston, so she
Boston.
calls Boston her home. So a couple of days ago, Fightful came out with the report. And Fightful, listen, Sean Rossap, Andrew Zarian, anybody who was reporting on this months ago, and all the little trolls on Twitter were like, "Oh, they said this was going to happen here and this is going to happen here, but Sasha's going to return at the Royal Rumble." Well, all of y'all are eating crow right now because if you couldn't tell, Mercedes Moné is heading to All Elite Wrestling. It's been reported for months, but of course, in the story they say it. So let me read the story for you. Fightful Select and Andrew Zarian of Mat Men Radio have learned more. The company announced a TD Garden episode of Dynamite, specifically titled Big Business, which is to feature Mercedes, who has been in the company's payroll, we learned, at least since early January. So she has already started getting paid by AEW. So I think she's going to be joining AEW.
I mean, you know, I'm just saying. Sometimes you get a paycheck, you get a job. You know, you can't say you don't work there. You get a job, you get a paycheck, got the employee number, all that stuff.
On December 29th, Fightful reported WWE stated that while they had talks with Mercedes, the talks had fallen through and the two sides couldn't come to terms. Similar with what had happened to AEW, because you remember AEW she was originally talking to, and then they didn't come to terms, and then she started talking to WWE. There was consideration for announcing or debuting Mercedes, but instead the decision to pass on that for the TD Garden was set. Fightful learned that there were several possibilities discussed, but the February 7th show announcement and the March 13th show date had been set for weeks. So they already knew that on February 7th, they were going to be announcing the show for March 13th. When Fightful reached out about rumors that Mercedes could be highlighted as far back as New York's Grand Slam show, we were told Mercedes was nowhere near being ready to go in the ring at that point. This was also confirmed by New Japan Pro Wrestling sources when reports emerged that they were hoping to book Julia versus Mercedes back then. New Japan sources indicated Mercedes was not cleared and had not resumed training. A pretty big piece of news relayed to Fightful from New Japan sources is that they do expect to have the ability to continue working with Mercedes, and told Fightful that it's been discussed. So there's a big possibility that Mercedes Moné decided to go with AEW because she could continue working with New Japan Pro Wrestling, which will be great because there's Forbidden Door, there's the natural, pairings between both companies outside of Forbidden Door, the pay-per-view. Will Ospreay is supposed to be starting full-time with the company soon, I believe this month.
Yeah, his contract was up, I believe, January 1st, right?
No, I believe it was February. Maybe it was February 1st, but it was sometime. I remember hearing that it was sometime in February. So AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, continuing their partnership, getting one of the hottest women's wrestlers. I mean, her name is out there. Her name is always talked about. She has a huge following. She's been on this show involving this little character up here, the Mandalorian. It's a big deal, and I'm hoping, my opinion in this is that they really formulate maybe Collision. Like Collision was supposed to be CM Punk's show. Maybe it becomes Mercedes' show. Maybe it's a big women's push for that show.
There's a whole bunch of what ifs and what ifs, right? But let me throw another what if in the mix. The show is called Big big business,
Right.
right? It's obviously centered around Mercedes money, but what about the other person that has something to do with money in their gimmick? What if we get Mercedes and Okada,
The Rainmaker.
the Rainmaker? Can you imagine those two together? Because wasn't when she was New Japan Women's Champion, and he was New Japan's IWGP champion. Like they were like two of the big box office smashes, like hits for New Japan at the time.
Yes.
Can you imagine
Right.
centering collision around those guys?
Yeah.
Those
But
two?
that's, of course, that is speculation that hasn't been reported.
Even Rampage. Like that'd be great to have more Rampage.
If you want to make Rampage more important, I would say sure.
Well, yeah.
It's I can see, because Rampage's show was really good last night. They're trying to make Rampage feel bigger. And I appreciate that because, you have a show, you might as well do something with it, right?
True.
Um, so there is speculation out there that uh Okada will also be joining AEW, and that will be the reason why Tony Khan and AEW have named that show Big Business, like you said, is because both of them will debut.
Maybe Will Ospreay as well. Like
But
if
we
I
already know
would
Will Ospreay's there.
no, I mean, but like debut on the show as an official member of
Oh,
AEW, not
okay,
just
yeah. Yes,
like
that's possible.
I would to me, I have that show, you got Mercedes money confirmed. I would book the most stellar dynamite ever. Like I'm talking like Sting's retiring. Okay, that's a big show. That's a big pay-per-view.
And
This
this
needs
is
to be as
after
big as
that.
that. This needs to be as big as that. Like you got to ride that wave of like nostalgia and popularity, and you got to ride that. Like get your numbers up, man. Like this is the best way to get your numbers up. Another thing I do is I leave those big ass buildings, like TD Gardens and all those places like that I can't sell out. I go to somewhere like Arthur Ashe where they're selling out Arthur Ashe. I go to like college gymnasiums, University of Florida, the Pyramid at Cal State Long Beach, which does like 10,000 people. You can fill up those buildings easily.
Yeah,
Don't try to do
I
stadium
think
shows
smaller
constantly.
venues for now, and
Mhm.
akin to like a Daly's place
Yes.
would be hell. I mean, just go back to Daly's place, run a
I mean, you
Daly's
got you
place.
got you got your spot right there, but um so let's end this stream on something positive for the professional wrestling fans. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you this. Just a simple question. When you watch 3 hours of Monday Night Raw and you get picture in picture and you get commercial after commercial after commercial, do you ever wonder how it would be if you were, let's say, a Netflix subscriber and you had Monday Night Raw, which is coming in 2025?
Yes.
It has been reported, ladies and gentlemen, by CNBC that WWE Raw will be for the first time in the history of all professional wrestling streaming on Netflix commercial free. Literally. Even when you had like Peacock and you're watching like WrestleMania on Peacock, you get commercials. Even when you have the plan, even
Well,
when you
I
have the
pay for
plan,
no commercials.
yeah, but
I
I
just
have the plan and no commercials either. I still get commercials, which is ridiculous. But on Netflix, if you're a subscriber to Netflix, you will not only get Raw, completely raw, but no commercials needed. We're talking no ads for Netflix subscribers. That is per Alex Sherman of CNBC. Man, that right there is exciting because I hate commercials.
That's
I mean,
why a lot of people choose to get VPNs
mm-hmm.
and buy the AEW fight package because they get the commercial-free edition of the shows, and they get, I think, a credit to um, the pay-per-view buys also,
Yeah.
because the pay-per-view buys are less money as well. So, yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. I hope that it doesn't raise the price of Netflix,
Oh, it's going to. You know,
but
it's going to.
probably, yeah, it will. Um,
I mean, I'm pretty
But I
sure they'll
think
have a
that that's
WWE package just for
and
Netflix.
my hope with the is that Raw goes back to 2 hours.
Oh my God,
Because
yes, please.
can you imagine like almost a pay-per-view every Monday night of just a straight 3 hours of show? I mean, I feel like that would be overwhelming.
I mean, it's overwhelming for us because we watch 3 hours of Raw and then we do a podcast an hour after so that's 4 hours on a Monday
Yeah.
night we're watching wrestling.
And I'm not even watching it.
And talking about
God.
it, you know. We literally on the Roundtable Pros and podcast, we had a catchphrase. We watch Raw so you don't have to, because no one wants to watch 3 hours of Raw. And if you have Raw on Netflix, I'm pretty sure it'd be 2 hours. I mean, I'm hoping it would be 2 hours, knock on wood. If it's 2 hours, the storylines will be a lot better. The matches will be a lot better. The backstage segments will be a lot better because now you got TV time and commentary. If you've ever been to a live show and you know, like when commercial, if you're at a Raw and you're watching on the big screen up there and Raw goes to commercial, the guys tend to slow down, do a headlock, roll out of the ring, face each other. They're killing that commercial time. Now you won't get that.
They'll show the signs, or they'll do because I went to SmackDown last year, and 2 years ago now, technically, because we're in 2024. When they right before WrestleMania, when they had SmackDown at the Barclays Center here in Brooklyn, it was quite a different experience from an AEW show because they do like the DX cam and showing the signs and all that stuff, which is fine, but it doesn't flow as nicely when you're in the arena.
Exactly.
So I feel like having this be ad-free and shortening the show back to 2 hours, I think there would be such a nice flow. It probably would make more people want to go to a Raw.
Oh, most definitely, because now they're seeing it on TV and they're seeing it like I took the mod to Monday Night Raw, and the mod was like, "Wow, this is fucking amazing. This is crazy. Wait a minute, why are they slowing down? Wait, what's going on now? Like, I don't see this on TV ever." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, welcome to the live show business. Like, you're the live show, it's completely different. You know, now for people who go to live shows to actually see what goes, like, this would be great. This is gonna be great. Monday Night Raw, WWE will not have ads for Netflix subscribers. That's going to be great. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on the Roundtable News Network. Beware, there will be more news this week because news never stops.
Slow down. Please slow down.
Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.